On behalf of the John Brown Watson Memorial Library System at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, we are excited to welcome you to this special event. Today, we are honored to host author Saige Annette Jarrett as she celebrates the release of her latest psychological suspense and romance novel, The Stranger in My Soul. Thank you all for joining us as we dive into this gripping new story and have the opportunity to meet the author herself. We look forward to hearing more about the inspiration behind the book and, of course, to get copies signed. Please join me in welcoming Saige Annette Jarrett to the stage.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I am, as she said, Saige Annette Jarrett, but many of you have attended events that I have done with the Carol Blakely School of Honors. Saige Annette Jarrett is my pseudonym. Oh, I'm sorry. It's my pseudonym. I am Dr. Gwendolyn Robinson in a professional environment. This was a hobby of mine that became, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. This was a hobby of mine that became something more personal. I started with journaling because I was frustrated. I had some things going on in my life about 25, 30 years ago, and I just started writing. I took a college rule notebook, and when I finished, I had my first novel, which is The Stranger in My Soul. Since then, I have written 2 more novels, Conscious Indiscretion and Illusions. My books are a Black woman experience. That's the best way to explain it. It touches a little bit of everybody, but it goes through the traveled path of being a Black female. The Stranger in My Soul, I'm from Arkansas. I grew up southern little Black girl in a little community called Humnoke. For those of you who don't know where that is, it's between England and Stuttgart. In Humnoke in the 70s, 80s, there was nothing for mental health. There was nothing for Black women who struggled. I grew up in a household with a mother with undiagnosed depression and anxiety. We didn't figure that out until my mother passed away. Because of that, I would like to say that if you have mental health challenges, even if you just have issues with your anger management, talk to somebody about that. It doesn't have to turn into something negative. It doesn't have to turn into a life sentence. So talk to somebody about that. So with this moment, Ms. Fields is we're going to pass this mic back and forth, and she's going to ask me some questions. If you all have any questions while she's speaking and while I'm speaking, just raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you, and I'll be happy to answer.
Hey everybody. Alrighty. This is my dear friend, Saige Annette, the author Saige Annette Jarrett. We've known each other for quite some time, and so I'm really excited about this opportunity for her to come and speak to you all. What has been the best thing about your writing journey? I know you had said, years ago you started journaling, but what has been the best thing about your writing journey?
I didn't expect to feel the freedom that I feel. When I started writing, it wasn't for publishing purposes. It was to get some things out of my spirit. It was to release some anxiety that I had. It was to break some generational curses of silence and not talking about traumatic experiences or being okay with it. For a long time, I was not okay with me. This process of writing helped me to be okay with me. Because once you write things down and you go back and you read them and you dissect what you put on paper and you allow yourself to feel what you've written, that's freedom. That is an empowering moment. And I think that a lot more people need to do it, and I truly encourage it in the African American community, because we are taught to be strong, hold your head up, big girls don't cry, make it work. Never let them see you sweat, as that old Secret commercial used to be back in the 70s, and I know only a few of you probably remember that. But we are taught that, and what we're doing is a disservice to ourselves, and we're definitely doing a disservice to young women. Because if you're just holding it in and just taking it and taking it and taking it and figuring out how to navigate around it, instead of trying to figure out what the root cause is for some of the decisions that you make, the good ones, the bad ones, the poor ones, the ooh, I can't believe I did that ones, then we're not getting any better. And we're passing that along to our daughters and our sons, that you just have to find a coping mechanism, but nobody teaches you what that is. Writing helped me find that coping mechanism.
All right, so I'm reading my notes here about The Stranger in My Soul. It says it blends the psychological suspense and romance, light on complex issues and such as social justice, microaggressions, mental health, as you mentioned, struggles, addiction, and promiscuity. So how did you decide the characters or the direction to go in this? So like a psychological suspense and romance. That sounds like a movie. So how did you decide because I'm already ready to read just on that, right? I know some of you all want to watch it. You all see the movie on Netflix with a series. So how did you decide to go in that direction?
Well, first let me say, Tyler Perry or Ava DuVernay, if you're listening, I'm ready. Come on with me. Honestly, it's based a lot on my own life. Of course, I embellished some of the characters to make it more interesting, but a lot of this was just looking at my own life. I have dealt with people who were horror stories, and I didn't recognize it. Some of those people in your life that you say, oh, they just have issues. Or, you have to look over them. That's just how they are. Or don't do that because, he or she, they'll get mad real quick. Those people have issues, but you don't have to internalize those issues. And you don't have to marry those issues, and you don't have to be in relationships with those issues. But when I looked back over that space and time in my life, I thought, oh my God, I have been dealing with some crazy people. And they truly were. When you read the textbook diagnosis, these people were sociopaths. To wake up and recognize that you've been involved with somebody who is a sociopath is a whole different moment in your life. So that's where the psychological thriller comes from, because a lot of this was just lived experiences.
I know some of you want to get your Cash Apps ready now. Okay, so do you have a favorite character in the book? Or, as you wrote, it's like, oh, okay, this person kind of sticks out as...
The primary character in the book is Madison. Madison is married to someone named Pedro. But my favorite character in the book is an older lady named Helen. Helen is the grandmother, big mama, friend, older woman in your life to give you advice and tell you you're worth something that a lot of people don't have now. And Helen was very spiritual in her guidance. Helen had a daughter that was the same age as Madison, so she kind of understood some of Madison's struggles. But my favorite character would be Helen, because Helen kept Madison grounded. She explained to Madison, things like, you are worth something. It doesn't matter what you've been through, your journey can move forward today. You can pray about it. God is going to hear you regardless. God hasn't turned his back on you because you've gone through some things. God is bringing you through some things without your knowledge. He doesn't need your permission to test you. But just because you're being tested doesn't mean he's not paying attention. And I think we all need a Helen. This Helen for me was very personal. because she did. She taught me some things. And it wasn't because my mother was not spiritual. We went to church every Sunday and we did the whole officer and all of that. But sometimes when you're in church and you're younger, you don't necessarily grasp what you need to until life kicks in. And when life kicks in, those old spirituals, shine on me, precious Lord, all of those start to mean something to you when you get a few more life hours. So Helen is the other side of meeting somebody as an adult who's had life hours and tell you that yours are valuable.
Okay, so there are a few common themes running through your books. So would you speak a little bit about them?
Sure. Okay. The first thing that is in my books as a theme would be there's always going to be some biblical reference, always, because I feel like for people who judge, even though they're church members, and they have a disposition that's not approachable, and you're not going to draw anybody to you if you're not approachable. So there's always some biblical references in my books, even though they are passionate romance. Sodom and Gomorrah came from somewhere. David and Bathsheba came from somewhere. So for people who are like, oh, how can you say that you are a believer, but you're writing books that have passionate scenes in them? The Bible has passionate scenes in them. Check out Song of Solomon. The other thing is there are artists, musical artists, that I think have done a phenomenal job with the music that they have created that people either aren't aware of or they never have gotten the publicity that I think they should have. So all of my books have artists and songs listed that you may or may not have heard, and I listen to everything: country, jazz, Afro-Caribbean, R&B, even a little bit of rap. So don't be surprised if you ever read my books and you go, now who is that? You may not have heard of them, but if you check them out, they have done some really good stuff. The other thing that I feel like is important if you have anything in publication, especially as a person of color, is something about social justice. All of my books have something about social justice and social injustice. So as you're reading, I'm feeling this as a woman of color, but I'm feeling this as a person of color. If we don't speak up and if we don't make mention of these things, look at where we find ourselves. We're going backwards in time in 2025. For people who lived it the first time, that's not an enjoyable ride. But for people who don't know about some of these things and some of the oppressive things that can happen to your psyche and your mental capacity to move forward one more time, it's important that people speak on it and that you understand these things are still happening and there is something you can do besides just march and take it.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm just excited because Saige Annette got her bachelor's degree here at UAPB. She was a business administration major here, and so I'm just excited that she's come home to share her experiences with you all, and I'm excited to see the students here. But what would you tell someone who was considering writing a book but still procrastinating a little bit?
Just do it. Just do it. Just sit down. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't even have a time frame. Again, I started all of these in 2000, 2001. I finally decided to do something in 2023. So mine sat on the shelf for 2 decades. But when I finally decided to press the send button and send it off and let somebody actually publish it, I thought, woo, okay, well, let's keep going. And so now about every 6 months to a year, I try and write another, because they've already been on the shelf 20 years. What am I waiting on? So I would say if you have something in you, everybody has a book in them. It doesn't have to be 200 plus pages. Everybody has a book. You may be able to tell what you need to tell and get your message out in 10 pages. If it's 10 powerful pages, do it. Just do it. Why are you waiting? Tomorrow is coming whether you publish or not, whether your voice is heard or not. And at one point in your life, tomorrow is not coming. And then there's a regret because you sat on something that maybe could have helped someone else or changed somebody's life.
Well, okay then. All right. Can we ask questions in the audience?
Sure.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions in the audience before we move forward?
So with your book in particular, do you feel like that you would have been able to tell the story as great as you did if you didn't go through it in real life?
No. in a short, no. Now, like I said, everything in the book is not 100% my life. I have added some things, I have embellished a few things, but the primary pieces of the book, no, because as you read it, there are things that I say as Madison that only someone who has gone through those things would be able to articulate it that way. This book is definitely a inside looking out versus somebody being outside looking in, because in everything that I write, one of the things that I do not try to ever do is judge, because I think at the time, no matter how old you are, you make the best decision based on the options that you have, and sometimes your choices are between bad and worse. So judgment is not something that I do, because I don't feel like I've had a life where I could judge anybody. But no, I don't, I couldn't have written anything if I hadn't experienced it, and that has been part of the getting to know me and the release process, because I understood now the emotions and the anger and the frustration and the being mad at God and all of that was something that I had to feel in order to write these.
All right. Good morning. I don't have a book ready, and I may plan on writing one day, but I don't even have any manuscript. But maybe for those that have books or have things written, what's the process of getting your works published? I mean, as a first time writer, you say you had your stuff on the shelf for 20 years. What are some of the first steps as far as getting your works published?
Don't be afraid to do it yourself. I am what they call an indie author, which is an independently published author. Yes, you can find my stuff on Amazon and Walmart and all of that, but I did it myself, because the time it takes to get a major publishing company to say your stuff is worth their time and to get it across their editor's desk and all of that can be very daunting. I would probably still be waiting 10 more years on somebody to approve what I know I needed to say. Do it yourself. There is several companies out there, if you just Google being an independent author, that will walk you through all of the steps. The first thing they just require is that you have a finished product. And by finished, I mean that you have a PDF that you can send to them. You can still be editing it, because they will send it back to you for your final approval in a e-proof before anything gets printed. So don't be afraid to put the draft together and send it so that they can start working on it. You can be getting your covers together, you can be getting the back copy together, you can be putting your acknowledgments together, all of that. And if you have friends who are artistic, and I say that because the cover of this book was designed by my son. He went to Central High School, and this was something that he drew back in 2015. I'm aging myself, but this was something that he drew back in 2015. The back cover and the logo for my other business, my training and development business, this was a picture that he drew in art class. during that same time frame. So, and then, you know, Canva is your friend. You can go out there and find anything on Canva, Splash, any of those that may resonate with you. Just make sure that they're not copywritten material. But in order to get started, you just have to press the button. Say, this is what I'm going to do. Don't send to anybody, even when I say send the rough draft, don't send something that's not complete. You need to have a beginning and a middle and an end and your highlight points and all of that. But once you've decided to do that, they will work back and forth with you, and they're not going to press, print, or publish until you say okay.
One of the things I thought about, thank you, Mr. Reedus, with your question, sometimes people are fearful of sharing their information because they're fearful that someone might take their ideas. So how do you minimize, someone taking your idea and making it their own? So how do you go about doing that, getting over that fear?
The first thing I did before I sent anything to anyone, including the printer, was I sent it to the U.S. Copyright Office so that I have the copyright certificate and the number, and it is lodged with the U.S. Department of Copyright. So I know that I own it. The second thing about your idea is your ideas and your experiences are not as unique as you think. When you get ready to publish and you're holding back and you're afraid, I'm going to say, since the release of The Stranger in My Soul, I have had more people contact me, not just females, but males, to say, you know what, I have my own trauma. I never knew what to do with my own trauma. Thank you for making it okay for me to be a black man and acknowledge that I have trauma, and I can process it now and not feel like it's a weakness, because we gotta have our game face on all the time. But on the inside, while you're waiting, who is suffering with you while you're putting on your game face and trying to be hard, but you're lashing out at people? And it's not just men, it's women. You have women who are abusive to the person that they're involved with because they have trauma that they have not dealt with. So one of the things that the book will ask is, what does a healthy relationship look like? Have you ever seen one? How would you explain it? Just because mama and daddy were together, married or unmarried, doesn't mean their relationship was healthy because they stayed together. What does that look like?
Well, all right. Any more questions?
Some of the students may be curious about a ballpark figure. I know length of book, quality of book, softback, hardback, things of those natures. But do you have kind of a ballpark figure you could tell them so they would know kind of what they would need to be looking at as far as saving up funds or trying to generate funds, investors, things of that nature?
Hard copy is always going to be the most expensive, always. And a hard copy book, just trying to get it together, will easily run you between $1,500 and $2,000, depending on who you choose. A soft paperback book can be done for print cost. And by that I mean the company that I used was called Ingram Spark. Ingram Spark only charges you when you print. They charge you to print. And so your books they print by the page. So you may be looking at anywhere from 25 cents to 50 cents per page. So that will determine how much you're going to spend in terms for them to print it. But they also ask you, they give you the option of how much to charge for your books. So you will know if you're making money back. And then depending on the number of pages, they have a scale. So if your book is between 1 and 100 pages, you're going to pay this. The per page rate goes down when you add more pages to it. So there's that range. So for example, The Stranger in My Soul cost me, to get it all together, published and everything, and then actually ordered some copies, about $1,200. But when I did the second book, I only spent about $5. Because I knew what I wanted. I knew I could edit my own work. And for those of you who do not feel like you are capable of editing your own work, one of the easiest places to start to cut down on the cost of an editor is Word, Microsoft Word. When you see the little yellow line, the little blue lines or the little red lines, that's telling you something is wrong. When you finish with Word, Grammarly, you're college students, so you should have access to free Grammarly anyway. Run it through Grammarly. That will tell you if your sentence structure makes sense or if it doesn't. Because in publishing my first Stranger in My Soul, the money that was designated to the editor still didn't catch everything that I caught, which let me know I could do it myself.
Okay, I know we're drawing to a close, so that way if students want to speak to Saige and Annette, you can before your next class, so we want to make sure we allow time for that. But do we have any more questions? And then we have a presentation. You got one more question? No question? All right. You got one?
It's about the book.
Okay.
I Googled you.
Oh, okay. I have to find out who are these people. But what caught my attention is they had a synopsis of the book. They had a synopsis of the book. And the character, I think you said her first name. Yeah, but her acronym stood for MESS. And that really sparked my attention because, you know, I like messy stuff. So, could you give us a little bit about the book? Not a lot, but just enough to just, you know.
You know what? I actually marked a quick excerpt. Let me read it for you, and that will give you, hopefully, what you're asking for. In the book, there is a scene where Madison is talking to her future husband, but she doesn't know that that's her future husband. And so he asked her, "Do you believe you deserve to be loved?" And she says, "I don't know what that means. Maybe one day I will find someone willing to show me honest love so I have a frame of reference. You are very much worth the effort and don't even know it. It will be my pleasure to accompany you on this journey." And so in this, Madison is explaining to him that this is where she releases the fact that her mother suffered from depression and that her mother married her father after having her heart broken by someone else, which brings up the hurt clause. And hurt stands for never make life-altering decisions when you are hurt, hungry, halt, H-A-L-T. When you are angry, when you are lonely, and when you are tired. Because when you do, you find yourself in situations that take years to recover from, if you ever do recover. So at the end of this scene, Madison just explains that one day, maybe I won't make the poor choices that I make. I choose people who are unavailable because that's what I know. I get involved in relationships that I know are not going to work because I don't have the commitment capacity.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all. Let's give Saige and Annette another round of applause, please. I'm excited. So some of you are already thinking about your book ideas. I can see it. You came in tired. Now you're thinking about the book you could possibly publish because you do have your own story. So I'm really excited about that. But now we have a presentation, and then we'll draw it to a close so that way if you have additional questions, you can meet with the author.
Hello, everyone. My name is Janiyah Cherry, and I am here to present the Certificate of Achievement. This certificate is proudly presented to Saige Annette Jarrett, author, counselor, and entrepreneur. In recognition of your outstanding academic contributions to student success and your valuable participation in the John Brown Watson Memorial Library System book signing. Thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you. I truly do appreciate this because being a UAPB graduate in I'm gonna go ahead and say 1990, I was in the class of 1990, so most of you probably weren't even thought about, let alone born in 1990. But coming back here as an instructor and now coming back here as a business owner and also coming as an author really, to me, demonstrates the power of going to a black college. It really shows that HBCUs are grounded in family, trust, and understanding. And if you're missing out on that only because you're paying attention to just the pledging aspect or the sports aspect, you're missing half a college. So I invite you to definitely dive into the family element of an HBCU.